This is no joke. They are not standing still. They are watching. And if you think you know the celebrities, you don't know what they do when the lights go out. I know. I've seen it. And now I can't forget. Forget everything you know about Madame Tussauds Museum. Forget the selfies with Tom Cruise and the laughs with Beyoncé. When I started working as the night cleaner, I found the 7 strict night shift instructions. Instructions on how to survive among hundreds of wax figures. Instructions that they don't want you to know. During the day, Madame Tussauds is a bright, cheerful maze of fame. A place where Leonardo DiCaprio always smiles and Queen Elizabeth perpetually waves. Hundreds of wax copies of human perfection. You feel their presence, but you ignore it. Because you know, it's just wax. I thought the same when I took the night shift. My job? Cleaning, polishing floors, and maintenance. From midnight to 6 in the morning, it was just me and hundreds of these silent stars. At first, it was creepy, but it quickly turned into a routine. Walk through the music hall, where the frozen Adele stares into the void. Then to the historical figures, where Winston Churchill is eternally paused with a cigar. The most unsettling was the Chamber of Horrors, which, ironically, seemed the most alive. The figures of serial killers there looked too realistic, their eyes seeming to follow my every move. But the real fear came when I accidentally found that piece of paper. It happened around 1:30 a.m. as I was wiping the display case, near the figure of Johnny Depp in his Jack Sparrow costume. Behind the glass, taped to the back wall, was a yellowed, slightly melted sheet of paper. On it, printed in an old-fashioned, distressed font, were the words, 7 strict night shift instructions in the copy sector. I took it, and it was in that moment I understood. My job wasn't just cleaning. It was survival. The instructions were typed as if they had been printed not on a modern device, but on an old teletype machine, with numerous crossouts and heavy underlining. The opening lines focused on the most critical elements: lighting and vision. Instruction number 1. Lighting. The light is your shield. Never turn off the central lights. Never remain in complete darkness for longer than 3 seconds. They only move when they can completely merge with the shadow. Even dim service lighting or the light from your phone, that is a barrier. I read this and immediately remembered that a projector in the movie star's hall was broken. I was supposed to replace it, but that required a complete shutdown of the subsection. I immediately abandoned the thought. Now I understood. That broken projector wasn't just a malfunction. It was a trap. As I read on, my hand tightened around the paper. I started to feel that the celebrity hall had become quieter. Not just silent, but muffled, like cotton wool in my ears. I looked up towards the section where the figure of Tom Cruise stood. He was supposed to be in a dynamic pose, arm raised, a wide smile. But now, he was standing straight. I couldn't be certain, but the pose felt different. I rushed to the next instruction, ignoring the strange silence and the figure. Instruction number 2. The copies. Conscious blindness. Never look them in the eyes. The eyes are the portal, and they are their weakest yet most dangerous element. When you see them, they know they are seen. Your pupils are their only method of activation. If you accidentally make eye contact, immediately look at their shoes or hair. This will confuse them. This instruction hit me harder than the first. I remembered the young queen in the Chamber of Horrors who always seemed to be watching my back. I realized she saw me. At that moment, a sharp, solitary, distinct sound echoed in the silence. It was the sound of a falling key. It dropped in the music hall right next to the wax Beyoncé figure. I was in the celebrity hall and couldn't have dropped my keys. It meant one thing. They had begun to move. My gaze involuntarily darted back to the figure of Tom Cruise. I didn't look him in the eyes, but I noticed something else. His arm, which had just been straight, was now hanging loosely by his side. And on his waxy, perfect cheek, there was a thin, barely noticeable streak like melting wax. It became clear to me. I found the rules too late. My heart was hammering. The sound of the falling key and the altered pose of Tom Cruise were undeniable proof. I didn't dare look to see what was happening in the music hall. I focused on the paper and quickly read the next instructions before it was too late. Instruction number 3. Zones. The perimeter path. Your main task is to avoid the central aisles. Always move strictly along the perimeter of the hall, clinging to the walls. They have an advantage in a crowd. In the center of the hall, they instantly merge with dozens of other figures, and you will never be able to distinguish them. If you must cross the center, do so with your back to the center, looking at the nearest wall. This rule is especially critical in the Chamber of Horrors. I immediately remembered that my mop and bucket had been left right in the middle of the celebrity hall. Now I couldn't retrieve them. I backed up against the wall, keeping my gaze fixed on the figure of Tom Cruise. I couldn't see Beyoncé, but I knew she was out there. And then I heard it. The sound. Instruction number 4. Sound. They must not be heard. The wax figures of celebrities must not make any sounds. None. They are perfectly created for imitation, not for movement. If you hear scraping, sliding, shuffling, or, worst of all, an unnatural, distorted sound coming from a figure, run away. It is especially dangerous if a figure known for its voice, a singer, a politician, begins to speak or sing. I froze. From the music hall, where the key had fallen, a quiet yet distinct singing began. It wasn't a song. It was a drawn-out, humming, low-frequency that sounded wrong. It was a distorted, unnaturally deep voice that could only belong to Adele. But it sounded as if it was coming not from her throat, but from within the waxen void. The sound was slow, but it was gaining volume. I understood. Beyoncé, Adele, they were activated. I dashed along the wall. I needed to reach the Chamber of Horrors to get to the only service staircase. Ahead of me waited the figure of Jack the Ripper and the young queen. And behind me, the wax choir. The distorted humming of Adele behind me forced me to run. I reached the junction of the celebrity hall and the corridor leading to the Chamber of Horrors. This was the shortest path to the staircase. I tried to stick close to the wall, as instruction number 3 demanded. And then I saw the mirror. Madame Tussauds museum is full of mirrors. They stand there to create an illusion of endless halls and crowds. But at that moment, in the dim light, the mirror became the most terrifying object. Instruction number 5. Mirrors, the reflected copy. Do not look at your reflection next to a wax figure. In the mirror, you will not see yourself. You will see their copy, the one they want you to see. This reflected copy is their best way to impose their control upon you. If you must pass a mirror, close one eye and focus only on the perimeter. I felt the blood drain from my face. Directly in front of me stood the figure of David Beckham, and directly behind him, full length, was a huge mirror. I shut my right eye and slowly walked along the wall. I saw it in my peripheral vision. My figure was reflected in the mirror. But something was wrong. My head was slightly tilted and my lips in the reflection were stretched into an unnatural, waxy smile. I wasn't smiling. I was terrified. It was my copy, but it belonged to them. I walked past, but it made me tremble. And trembling was forbidden, because the next instruction was the hardest. Instruction number 6. Breath. Do not show fear. Never show fear. They feed on it. If they sense an adrenaline rush, they will move faster. The surest way to control emotions is not to breathe loudly. If you are very scared, bite your tongue and focus on looking as lifeless as they do. In a critical situation, freeze like a wax figure for 30 seconds. I was already trembling. My breathing was ragged and every inhale felt loud as a gunshot. I bit my tongue to feel the pain, to break my focus. I entered the Chamber of Horrors. The dim light here made the figures of serial killers look even more menacing. I walked past Jack the Ripper and his dull, glassy eyes. At the entrance to the staircase stood that very young queen. I froze, trying to impersonate a stone. My gaze was fixed on her ancient, embroidered robe. And then I noticed it. On the figure of the young queen, a tear was streaming down her waxen cheek. A single, perfectly round, fresh, human tear. And from behind her lips, which should have been sealed with wax, I heard a very quiet, almost imperceptible sob. They weren't just feeding on my fear, they were playing with me. And I knew they were about to make their move. The tear. A fresh human tear on the waxen cheek of the young queen. And that quiet sob she shouldn't be making. It was a sign that my fear had activated them. The monotonous humming of Adele and Beyoncé in the music hall had now escalated into a fast, shuffling, scraping sound, approaching along the perimeter. I could hear something heavy falling and dragging across the floor. The figures from the celebrity hall were now in pursuit. I couldn't stand still any longer. I rushed toward the service door that led to the staircase, but the young queen stood right by the entrance. I couldn't bypass her without violating instruction number 3. And then I realized that instruction number 7 contained only one word that was bolded and circled. Instruction number 7. Appeasement. Recompense. They want compensation for their activation. To pass, you must leave them something that is your personal, irreversible value. It cannot be a phone or keys. It must be internal, emotional, and alive. If you leave them nothing, they will take the most valuable thing, your own copy. Leave a part of yourself so that the figure you see remains motionless. I desperately looked myself over. What did I have that was most valuable? I was a poor cleaner. I had no money or valuables with me. Except I remembered my golden ring, my wedding band. I had worn it since I got married. It was the only thing I truly cherished and had never taken off. It represented my real, happy life outside this cursed museum. It was alive, emotional. I had no choice. Quickly, almost without looking, I yanked the ring off my finger. The skin beneath it was pale, unused to the air. I raised my hand and, trying not to look into her eyes, threw the ring onto the floor right at the young queen's feet. The ring clinked and rolled across the marble floor before finally stopping. In that same instant, the scraping and shuffling behind me instantly ceased. Absolute, ringing silence descended. The young queen at the entrance stopped sobbing. Her waxen cheek froze, and the tear that was running down it hardened and cracked. She became simply a copy. I felt something leave the air. Something that had been alive had turned back into wax. I didn't check if Tom Cruise or Adele were moving. I simply stepped over the lifeless figure of the young queen and, without looking back, scrambled down the service stairs. I burst out of the back exit of Madame Tussauds museum into the coming dawn. The cold, damp air of the London street felt like salvation for the first time. I didn't stop until I was far away from the building, where every celebrity held a hungry predator inside. I survived. But I did not leave the same person. I got home, took a shower, and only when the light from the window fell on me did I look at my hand. My ring finger was bare. Only a pale mark remained, which quickly disappeared. I had given them a piece of my real life to save my physical shell. The next morning I called and quit, saying I had found another job. I never mentioned the 7 strict instructions. And I never told anyone what I saw when the figures of Leonardo DiCaprio or Johnny Depp started to move. But the museum did not leave me alone. A week later, my wife wanted to visit me at my new job, and on the way back, she had the idea to go to Madame Tussauds. "Let's go see the stars," she said, smiling. I couldn't go. I lied, saying I had an emergency shift. But I sat at home in absolute dread until she returned. When she walked in, she was happy. She showed me hundreds of selfies taken against the backdrop of the wax figures. But one photo made my hand start to tremble again. It was a selfie she had taken in the celebrity hall. In the background, in the semi-darkness, stood the figure of David Beckham. And next to him, on a separate, empty pedestal, a new figure had appeared. It was my copy. The copy they had created to hold my sacrifice. The figure was dressed in my dirty working cleaner's uniform. It had my face, my haircut, but it looked terribly tired. And its hand was pressed against its chest. On its ring finger, made of perfect wax, a gold wedding band sparkled. Instruction number 7 said, "They will take the most valuable thing, your own copy." I thought it was a metaphor, but they literally created me. They created me so that I would always remain in their collection. I will never return to Madame Tussauds Museum. And if you ever see a figure that looks too lifeless, too tired, look at what it holds. And if you are ever offered the night shift, especially in the section where the wax copies of celebrities are kept, don't take it. You don't know what you'll have to give up to step into the light.